Buffs Nation, welcome back to another episode of Common Sense Buffs. Listen, y'all, have y'all ever had a hangover? You wait all week, you're looking forward to that party on a Saturday. You get fresh, you in your freshest outfit. You're about to go to the party and kill them. And then you have a little bit too much to drink. You black out. And the next day you wake up asking, what the heck happened last night? That's how I feel after that game between the Kansas Jayhawks and my beloved Colorado Buffaloes. Man, this team had, let me pause on that, still has destiny in its hands, but nowhere was it more within their grasp than going into that game against Kansas. The stakes were extremely high because at that time, the 8-2 Buffs, if they won that game with Kansas and win the game next week against Oklahoma State, they were a shoo-in for the conference championship in the Big 12, and they had a high probability of going to the college football playoffs. But hey, who's looking behind? Nobody. It's time to look forward, and I'm going to break down with my reaction to that game, touch on the high points, low points, and what we need to do going into the future to get back on track. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to react to. Before we go any further, man, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and hit it right now. Hit that like so this can go out to like-minded people. You guys have been going crazy with the content. I think we got 2 videos in a row, over 1,000 views. We have over 300 subscribers on our way to 350. Let's get there. And of course, ladies, support your boy, man. 95% of the subscribers on here are male. I don't have any problem with that. But I know the ladies watch the channel too, so please hit that subscribe as well. So we got some tough love to hand out today, man. And that's the only way you could get over a hangover. You got to sit with it. You got to let it marinate. You got to ask yourself, what the heck was I thinking? The Buffs, who are now 8-3, ran into a buzzsaw when they went to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the red hot Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas right now as a sub 500 team. So they went into that game 4-6. After they beat Colorado, has now knocked off 3 top 25 teams in a row. And unfortunately, we were the 3rd team. This wasn't just a loss, though. Kansas dominated in all 3 phases of the game. I don't think they punted that game. That's how much they controlled both the clock, the play calling, and the field. And honestly, man, the Buffs on defense especially, but in some cases on offense, look like the Buffs of 2023. They were undisciplined, they got outworked, and they looked downright overmatched. So today we're going to be talking about something bigger than X's and O's. We're going to talk about how you deal with a hangover that comes from being intoxicated with success. Now, where do I get that line from? I get that line from Coach Prime in the locker room after the game talking to his team. And Prime has been saying this all season. Don't believe what they write about you. You didn't believe it when it was negative. Don't believe it when it's positive. You still have to put your head down and do what you did to become successful. He said it multiple times this week because even though Kansas was 4-6, they had just knocked off Iowa State 2 weeks ago. They had knocked off BYU, who at the time was undefeated, a week ago. And this was not a team to be taken lightly. And every day in those morning meetings, Prime was reminding not only the team as a whole, but certain players not to get intoxicated with success. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to go over to an article over at the Bleacher Report. Big shout out to the Bleacher Report. Let's see if we can get that real quick. And this is what Prime had to say. So the headline here is Deion Sanders, Colorado intoxicated with success, got humbled in loss versus Kansas, written by Jack Murray. Big shout out to Jack Murray. Colorado Buffaloes head coach Deion Sanders sees a learning opportunity in Saturday's loss. The Buffaloes fell Oh wait, what happened? I think I lost my screen here. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Let's get it back. All right, here we go. It says the Buffaloes fell 37-21 to Kansas to end a 4-game winning streak. Following the game, Sanders addressed his team's lackluster effort and acknowledged that they needed to be humbled. My goodness, that they needed to be humbled. Uh, all right, let's see what's going on here. I think I lost my connection there for a second. The Buffaloes fell 37-21 to Kansas to end their 4-game winning streak. Following the game, Sanders addressed his team's lackluster effort and acknowledged that they needed to be humbled. The problem is you got intoxicated with success, Sanders said to his team. You start believing what they are saying. You start listening more to what they say. You bought into all that foolishness that you were this, and then you went out there and got humbled. And he was not only speaking to the players, he was speaking to the coaches as well. And I think in a way he was speaking to himself because this was a humbling game, guys. From the opening whistle and throughout that entire game, the Kansas Jayhawks outplayed, outmuscled the Colorado Buffaloes, right? And another thing that Prime said in that locker room, it was just a powerful moment, man. And there was a lot of heads. I mean, even at halftime, and I was watching Bucky's video on Well Off Media, even at halftime, man, you could see that their heads were down. Now the Buffaloes are no strangers to being down at halftime, right? This is a scrappy team. They'll fight back. But in this game, for some reason or other, again, using an intoxication as an analogy is so true. They literally in that first half of the game and throughout the game looked intoxicated. It looked like they couldn't make a play even when there were plays right in front of them to be made. And Prime talked about whooping your opponent multiple times this week. He said you want to whoop your opponent to the point where they don't want anymore. And at halftime on that Well Off Media video, you could see at least one guy off in the corner with his head down. And energy is transferable. And coach was trying to fire his team up about the fact that they needed to come out and play because they were still in that game at halftime. And you'll see that when I break down the numbers and I go through the box score. But you can see that the heads were already down. The energy was kind of off. The energy of the entire game was off. And man, again, at the end of the game, those heads were down. And Prime did not hold back because guess what? He's a leader of men, and men need to hear the truth. When you play well, you need to hear that. But when you play poorly, you need to hear that as well. And in the locker room after the game, he told his players straight up, you played like a hype team. And he's 100% right. Sometimes, and I play football, you could look at the two teams' records and you could take your opponent for granted and you could walk into the opponent's stadium and feel like they're just going to lay down because you are who you are or because of the record that you have. Kansas is a team that's playing with a tremendous amount of confidence and a tremendous amount of want to. Their season is not the season they expected to have this year, especially with a roster loaded full of seniors and many of these guys playing in their last season. They were 4-6 coming into this game. They're now 5-6, and they are playing to go to a bowl so they don't feel like their entire season was wasted. And what we saw on the field on the Colorado side of the ball was really what Prime described, which was a hype team. Guys who believed that just because they were having the success they were having all season, having their destiny in their hand, just simply winning the next 2 games and going to the championship, I think there was a little bit of a let off. And when they got punched a couple of times in that first half of the game, it took everything out of them. Right. So let me know in the comments if you agree, if you had that same feeling, man, if you had a chance to watch the Well Off video and see the locker room scenes, both at halftime and at the end of the game, let me know if you agree. So now let's break down some of the numbers that are clues as to how bad this game was, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we'll talk about the offense as well because we were completely flat on that side of the ball as well. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully it works a little bit better this time around. Let's see. Colorado versus Kansas. Here we go. So here's the box score here. I'm pulling this information directly from my Google search. So as you can see here, the Buffaloes are now 8-3. The Kansas Jayhawks are 5-6. It was 37-21, but this game was way worse than this, right? I mean, they got outplayed, and it shouldn't have been in this close, in my personal opinion. Passing yards. Now, Jalen Daniels, throughout the season, has been a turnover machine. But even though there were two plays there that Travis could have had, I think, interceptions on. One was in the red zone where Jalen threw it into the ground, and Travis, he was close enough, but really couldn't make a play on it. And then a fantastic defensive back play that Travis made maybe in the third quarter of the game where he dove for an interception and almost got it. I think the fact that he hit the ground dislodged the ball. But Jalen Daniels had been a turnover machine. But look at his efficiency here in the pass game. He was 14 of 21 for 189 yards and a touchdown. And that's basically all they needed him to do because the person who really carried the game was Devin Neal in the run game. Look at these numbers. 37 carries. So they're not just giving him his normal carries. They're feeding him at this point because the Buffs couldn't stop the run. 37 carries for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Oh, but wait, there's more. He also led the Kansas Jayhawks in receiving yards with 4 receptions for 50 yards, and you'll see why when I break down the scoring and how the scoring in the game happened. Now, looking at this stat line, you wouldn't think the offense on the Colorado side of the ball played so poorly. Well, the reason why this doesn't really impact the score, even though they were fairly efficient on the offensive side of the ball, it's because the Kansas Jayhawks held the ball for 41 minutes. The offense for Colorado, when they were on the field, didn't have long. They didn't have the possession of the ball for a very long period of time. And there were a couple of instances there where on the defensive side of the ball, when they were trying to mix things up early in the game and they put Keaton Wade at linebacker, and it's like 3rd and 9 and a tight end comes cutting across his face, catches the pass, and Keaton Wade's right there to make the play, and he misses the tackle. And then later on, I think on the same drive or maybe the subsequent drive, Travis Hunter runs into the referee and the referee knocks him over, and he actually does he rolls like in a back tuck on the ground. I knew it was over on the defensive side of the ball. It was just complete dominance on that side of the ball. But it was the dominance in the way that they played in the time of possession as well. So Colorado didn't even have an opportunity to really have the ball on offense. And when they did, and the yardage was close to keep the ball, get a first down, and keep the drive going, we couldn't get it. I think there were 2 instances in that game where it was 3rd and 1, and we didn't get it. And that's not going to cut it. And both of the times I think we were running out of the shotgun instead of lining up under center or in the pistol, handing the ball off to a back like Michael Welsh and letting him just get the 1 yard. Guys, if we can't get 1 yard on 3rd down, we're not going to win very many games. So looking at this is no real indication of how really dominant this win was, even at 37-21. But the stat line reveals a little bit of it because Kansas absolutely dominated the time of possession. But let's look at the scoring, and it'll really illustrate how much Kansas had the ball. So Colorado won the toss, kicked the ball to Kansas, and for the first drive, they had it for this was a big play drive here. So this was only about like a 4-minute drive, and Devin Neal had a 51-yard pass. This was my first indication that this defense came out flat. They throw the ball to the flat. And any team that plays Colorado knows we've had issues with the running back out of the backfield running the wheel route. So, of course, any good coach recognizing the weakness is going to throw the ball to the flat. So they throw the ball to Neal in the flat. And one of my favorite players on the team, Cam Silman Craig, comes up, has the opportunity to make the tackle, completely whiffs, and then every subsequent tackler after him misses Devin Neal, and he goes for 51 yards and a touchdown. We go 3 and out on offense. Look how long the drive is, right? The next score is 2 minutes and 39 seconds. So basically, Colorado scored twice in the first quarter and basically possessed the ball most of that time. They score again in the second quarter, right? But at 9 minutes, and they held the ball most of that time. And then we had a quick score on a big play, explosive play to Travis Hunter, where he catches a screen and takes it to the house. They come back and score on a field goal. Draylon Miller, we score right before halftime. Look how dominant their offense was. So they get the ball back at 1 minute and 51 seconds. 1 minute and 51 seconds, right? They go down the field and get a field goal. Literally, this was a 1-point game here. If we had just held them, gone to the locker room 2014, we were getting the ball after halftime. But again, the defense couldn't stop the nosebleed. So after halftime in the third quarter, we come right out and we score, right? Again, Travis Hunter makes a big play. We are within 2 points. They get the ball back and just run all over this team and score again because we couldn't stop them. And what they wanted to do was play keep away. So they keep the ball away again from Colorado. We don't get very many offensive possessions, and they score again in the fourth quarter. And the fourth quarter was just more of the same as far as the rest of the game. But here's something that winning covers up a lot. And as human beings, we tend to ignore obvious glaring issues when we're being successful. Again, that's part of the intoxication process. But look at the leading rusher for Colorado is Shedeur Sanders. And he had to scramble in this game. But I can't put it on the offensive line because I think he wouldn't be 23 for 29 if they weren't protecting him and for 3 touchdowns. They were protecting him. He was holding on to the ball too long. And much of these yards were not designed runs. These are actually runs on the scramble. We have to do better than this, guys. We can't, you're not going to, football is a fair game. Football is like life. You get out of it what you put into it. And if you don't learn the lessons of football, eventually it's going to catch up to you. You cannot avoid these situations. Right? And so this is the story of the game right here in this stat line. But listen, like life and like football, you have to sit with things when they go wrong. You can't run away from that hangover. Your head is going to hurt. You're going to try to drink water. You're going to try to drink anything to kind of break that hangover, but you just have to endure it. It might take you a day when you're younger. It might take you 2-3 days as you get older because your body's not going to process that alcohol as quickly. But you're going to need to sit with this hangover. This team, I know that plane ride, that bus ride to the plane, that plane ride home today, maybe if they hit the facility, I don't know. I haven't watched Well Off today. I'm sure it was quiet. I'm sure it was quiet. And when they got home, they probably drew the curtains. They turned their phone off. They weren't trying to hear it because that's what is necessary when you get humbled in the way that Colorado did. Now, what would be absolutely even more tragic is if this was the last game. Fortunately, the football gods are gracious. And like in life, you get a second chance. Sometimes. But if you're talking about your life or my life, hey, if you woke up this morning, that's your second chance. If you wake up tomorrow, that's your second chance, right? You could turn things around. And fortunately for the Buffs, they get a second chance against Oklahoma State this week. Now, this isn't time though, right? Even though we need to process it, we need to go through it because we're fortunate to have another game. We still have everything to play for because college football today is very wild. There are a lot of teams who lost games who were expected to win, and there are a lot of teams on upset alert every week, including us, and we cannot take Oklahoma State for granted because on the schedule with the way Arizona State is playing and Kansas State is playing and BYU is playing and Iowa State, any one of those teams could come up with a loss, and there are many scenarios that still could put the Colorado Buffaloes in the championship game. But we need to handle business, all right? But, Shedeur Sanders' nickname is legendary. And the defense has bailed out the offense multiple times this year. There were many wins. Many of those 8 wins came because the defense played lights out. This is a legendary opportunity for Shedeur Sanders to put this team on his back and carry them and will them to victory in this game against Oklahoma State. What do you guys think about the opportunity now that this team has coming out of Kansas to play Oklahoma State and prove that the previous game was a fluke and end the season on a high note, whether they go to the championship or not? Because at 8-3, this is a fantastically successful season. I had the team at 8-4. I do not want to be right. I do not want to be right when it comes to my record prediction for 2024. I want to be absolutely wrong, and I think this team has the ability to do that against Oklahoma State. This week, I'm going to be previewing that game against Oklahoma State, as well as bringing you all the news in recruiting and otherwise. And just like life and just like football, I know Prime loves second chances, and he's going to have this team ready to take advantage of this fortunate second chance. So here's my message to the Buff Nation. Don't believe the hype, but don't believe the doubters either. This team has fought all season, and they will continue to fight and fight again. The goal isn't just a bowl game. That's already checked off. It's redemption. It's pride, and it's finishing this season strong. Do me a favor, drop your score predictions for the Oklahoma State game in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling after this loss and what you want to see from the Buffs next week. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Let's hit 350 subs as quickly as we can on our way to 500 subs and keep this community growing. Buffs Nation is not over yet. I'll see you on the next episode of Common Sense Buffs. Let's ride.